Alarms blared across Dominion Monitoring Station Delta 7. Commander. ZVC leaped from his seat as red lights pulsed across every display. His long blue fingers flew across the controls, trying to make sense of the data. Sir, we've got multiple contacts exiting hyperspace, said Operator Femlin, her voice unsteady. 20 ships. Maybe more. They're huge, sir. Really huge. Commander Zalvek turned to the main screen. Tiny lights appeared at the edge of their sensors, each light a ship moving in flawless formation. He'd never seen such a large fleet emerge all at once. Send an alert to Admiral Vester immediately, he commanded. Unknown vessels breaching Dominion space, and get me clearer readings on them. 3 hours away, aboard the flagship Eternal Glory, Admiral Vester stood tall on the bridge. His silver-toned skin reflected his rank, and concern shadowed his features as Delta 7's message came through. How many ships? He asked his comms officer. 200 confirmed, Admiral. Possibly more behind them. Station says it's unprecedented. Vester pulled up the feed on his personal console. The alien fleet was advancing slowly, deliberately, and ignoring all hails. Worse, their whole shapes stirred something deeply unsettling in him. These designs, he muttered. They're human, but that can't be. Humans don't possess fleets of this magnitude. Aboard the UN's Endeavour, Captain Jake Morrison was sipping coffee in his quarters when the emergency call arrived. As the only human ship attached to Dominion forces for joint training, the Endeavour was modest, but Jake had called it home for 15 years. He had never heard Admiral Vester sound this shaken. Captain Morrison, report to my bridge immediately. It concerns your people. Donning his uniform, Jake made his way through the narrow halls. When he stepped onto the Eternal Glory's massive bridge, he knew at once something was very wrong. Admiral, what's going on? Look, Vester pointed at the central screen. 200 ships, all human in appearance. But our readings say they shouldn't exist. Jake stared in disbelief. The ships had Earth's signature sharp lines and symmetrical builds, but their energy output was staggering. Admiral, I need to contact Earth Command. Right now, Jake said. These ships aren't from any human fleet, I know. Do it, Vesta replied grimly. And Captain, your people better have an explanation. Meanwhile, in her lab aboard the Endeavour, Dr. Lisa Carter's science officer was analyzing the incoming signals when she dropped her coffee in shock. This isn't possible, she whispered. She reran the scans. Same results. The fleet was transmitting signals on frequencies that should be unachievable, human-coded messages, sent through 17 separate layers of spacetime simultaneously. She quickly opened a channel. Jake, you need to see this. These ships. This tech is way beyond anything we've ever built. Way beyond anyone. Period. What do you mean? He asked. I mean they're communicating through dimensions we barely understand. And Jake, those messages, they include Earth culture from 50 years ago, but also star charts we've never even discovered. A cold knot formed in Jake's chest. Keep digging, Lisa, and don't share this with anyone. Not yet. Down in the engine room, Chief Engineer Sam Davis studied impossible readouts. The approaching ships used faster-than-light communication, beyond anything he'd seen. Hey Pete, he called to his assistant. Look at this. None of it makes sense. Pete Wilson studied the data and whistled. Chief, these ships are connected. Like, really connected. No time delay. It's like they're sharing one mind. That's not possible, Sam said. Even quantum entanglement has limitations. But these vessels, they're acting like a single organism. Back on the Eternal Glory, Admiral Vester received another grim update. Admiral, said his tactical officer, the fleet has stopped exactly 1 light hour from our position, still in perfect formation. Any response to our signals? Vester asked. None, sir. No acknowledgement whatsoever that we exist. Captain Morrison returned to the bridge with grim news. Admiral, I've spoken to Earth Command. They confirmed it. No human fleet of this scale exists. Our largest battle groups top out at 20 ships, not 200. Then where did these ships come from? Vexor demanded. I don't know, Jake admitted. But Admiral Helen, Price is transmitting all files on classified experimental technologies. Maybe something in there can help us identify what we're dealing with. Dr. Carter arrived on the bridge, holding her portable scanner. Admiral Captain, I've been analyzing the signals from the fleet. They're definitely of human origin, but something's changed. It's like someone took human tech and re-engineered it in ways that defy known science. What do you mean? Vexor asked. They're scanning us right now, Lisa explained, her eyes locked on the display. Every detail, our ships, our weapons, even our life signatures. But they're using scanning techniques that shouldn't exist, not according to any known science. Jake stared at the screen. 200 enormous ships, motionless in space. They looked human, but there was something deeply unsettling about them. Something wrong. Admiral, I think we need to call for reinforcements, he said quietly. I already have, Vexor replied. But Captain Morrison, I'm more concerned with what they want. If their tech is this far beyond ours, it might not matter how many ships we bring. Two fleets now faced one another across the cold void between stars. On one side, the familiar forces of the Galactic Dominion and their human allies. On the other, 200 mysterious vessels, human in appearance, alien in presence, and, still, completely silent. Admiral Vexor convened an emergency council in his flagship's grand chamber. The circular room filled quickly with representatives from every species in the Dominion. The air was heavy with unease. We face a crisis unlike any in our history, Vexor began, his silver skin looking ashen under the lights. These ships pose a threat we don't yet understand. Hive Speaker, Zenith of the Krytuk, was first to speak. His insectoid limbs buzzed and clicked with agitation. My people's memory songs tell of ships, like these ancient warnings encoded in our DNA. We should retreat at once. Retreat. The voice came from Crystalmine Turville of the Velinari, her crystalline body shifting colors as she spoke. We are the Dominion. We don't flee from mystery. We study it, comprehend it, and then face it. The third voice belonged to Vinix of the Zytid, a gaseous being contained within a glowing suit. His words echoed like wind through caverns. Perhaps we should strike first. These ships, whatever they are, clearly carry hostile intent. Captain Morrison said nothing, observing the tense debate. His tactical officer, Commander Ryan Brooks, leaned in and whispered, Sir, I've been analyzing their flight path. These ships, they knew exactly where to go. Every Dominion base, every supply point, even the covert ones. We're talking about high-level, restricted coordinates. Jake's heart sank. How's that even possible, Ryan? Most of those locations are top-level classified. I don't know, sir. But whoever's controlling those ships, they've been watching us for a long time. Dr. Lisa Carter entered the chamber, looking exhausted. She clutched a portable computer. Admiral, I've found more about their communications. Please, Dr. Vexor said. Lisa activated her device. Strange, layered tones filled the room, otherworldly patterns of sound. These are their internal transmissions, she said. They're using frequencies that shouldn't even exist. But that's not all. She pressed another button. Music began to play, recognizably human music, but warped with sounds no human instrument could produce. They're blending human culture music, language, poetry, mathematics, with data from places we've never been, alien star systems, unknown species, information we don't have access to. Hive Speaker Zemoth's compound eyes locked on Lisa. What kind of data? Full biological breakdowns of species at the galaxy's edge. Star charts for systems no Dominion vessel has ever reached. Technical specs for weaponry and defense systems, centuries ahead of us. The room fell into a stunned silence. Finally, Crystal Mind Turville spoke. Dr. Carter, are you saying these ships have explored all of that? I'm saying they've been there, Lisa said. The data they're carrying it suggests they've mapped the galaxy, possibly beyond. Just then, Captain Morrison's communicator beeped. Excuse me, he said, stepping away from the table to take the call. It was a direct message from Earth Command, finally replying to his earlier inquiry. Admiral Helen Price's face appeared on the screen, her voice tight with urgency. Jake, I've reviewed all classified records. No human fleet that size has ever existed in known space. Even our top experimental prototypes are nowhere near those energy levels. Those ships didn't come from Earth. Jake's voice was low, but they're clearly human-built. That's what scares me, Helen said. Jake, there's more. I found something buried in our black archives 200 years ago. There was a covert expedition called the UN's Infinity Mission. They were sent into the galactic void to investigate rumors of ancient alien tech. The whole mission was top secret. Even I could barely access those files. A chill swept through Jake Morrison. What happened to them? They vanished, Admiral Price said. No contact, no wreckage, just gone. The entire operation was buried and forgotten. But Jake, the timeline fits. If they survived and discovered what they were looking for, the transmission cut out. Jake stared at the dark screen, his mind reeling. He returned to the council chamber, his thoughts racing. Meanwhile, down in the Endeavor's engine room, Chief Engineer Sam Davis and his team were still trying to comprehend the impossible. Assistant Pete Wilson was studying the unknown fleet's propulsion. Chief, you're not gonna believe this, Pete said. These ships aren't just using FTL comms. They're connected through some kind of quantum network that exists outside normal space-time. Sam blinked. Come again? They're not acting like separate ships. They're components of one massive system. One learns, they all know. One moves, they all follow. Perfectly synchronized. Sam looked at the data, then slowly shook his head. This tech is so advanced, it might as well be sorcery. How do you fight an enemy that thinks with 200 minds at once? Back in the conference chamber, tensions were rising fast. Alien representatives shouted over one another, the Krytuk demanding immediate withdrawal, the Velinari arguing for diplomatic outreach, and others calling for a preemptive strike. Enough. Admiral Vexer's voice boomed through the room. Fighting amongst ourselves helps no one. Commander Brooks stood and brought up a tactical display. Let's focus on facts. These ships have been holding position for 6 hours. No movement, no attacks, no replies. The question is, what are they waiting for? Dr. Carter glanced at her scanner. They have been doing something, she said. They're scanning us, constantly. Every system, our weapons, defenses, even life support. And not just tech, they're scanning us biologically too. Captain Morrison's stomach dropped. They're studying us, like scientists examining test subjects. The gaseous form of Villainix began to swirl rapidly in agitation. This is outrageous. We are not lab animals, we are the Dominion, are we? Murmured Hive Speaker Exmoth. My people's memory songs speak of humans who entered the void between stars and returned, altered. Not quite human anymore. Changed in ways that made even ancient powers tremble. Crystal Mind Turville's crystalline form dimmed to a deep crimson concern. You're saying these ships are crewed by transformed humans? I'm saying, Exmoth replied solemnly, we might be facing the return of something that was never meant to come back. Admiral Vexer looked around the room. Officers human and alien wore the same expression, dread. Then what course do you suggest? He asked. Before anyone could answer, every screen lit up simultaneously. An incoming transmission. The signal, Amy Foster. The Endeavor's communications officer said, it's broadcasting on every frequency. The voice echoed from all screens and speakers at once. Attention, inhabitants of this space. We are the vanguard of the human evolutionary collective. We have returned to evaluate the progress of our baseline cousins and their allies. Prepare for inspection. The voice was unmistakably human, but off. Too calm, too calculated. Subtle harmonics layered beneath the speech made the hair on everyone's neck stand on end. Captain Morrison stared, cold dread gripping him. Human. Evolutionary collective. That name doesn't exist in any record I've ever seen, because it likely doesn't exist anymore. Dr. Carter murmured, pale, at least, not as human. The message repeated across every Dominion and human ship, flawless galactic standards spoken with mechanical precision. Yet something felt profoundly wrong. We are the vanguard of the human evolutionary collective. We have returned to assess the progress of our baseline cousins and their associates. Prepare for inspection. Jake's hands trembled as he locked eyes on the comm screen. Lieutenant Foster. Amy Foster was frantically scanning her instruments. Captain, the vocal patterns are definitely human, but something's off. There are harmonic frequencies mixed in tones no human vocal cords could produce. It's like the voice was modified. Modified? Jake asked. I don't know how, but whatever spoke to us, it's not entirely human anymore. The message continued. The speaker now began listing specific, intimate details of the Dominion fleet ship names, crew, manifests, weapon configurations, even the personal names of senior officers. Dominion flagship Eternal Glory, crew, 4,200. A stunned silence fell over the room. Every screen scrolled with data pulled straight from their most secure systems. Data the fleet had no way of broadcasting or leaking. Jake leaned forward, voice low. They know everything. Commanded by Admiral Vexer, of the Third Hegemony, the voice spoke calmly. Primary weapons, plasma cannon arrays, quantum torpedoes, defense systems, grid generators, current shield strength, 87%. Admiral. Vexer's four eyes widened in disbelief. That information is classified at the highest level. How do they know our exact shield status? The voice pressed on, listing every ship in the Dominion fleet model numbers, command structure, crew rotations, even classified loadouts. When it reached the UN's Endeavor, Captain Morrison felt a pit open in his stomach. United Nations vessel Endeavor, crew, 51 humans, commanded by Captain Jake Morrison, primary assignment, cultural exchange and tactical liaison. Current crew, psychological state, elevated stress, trending toward panic. In the science lab, Dr. Lisa Carter was racing through scans. Jake, she said urgently, they're not just pulling specs. They're actively scanning us biologically. They know our heart rates, brainwaves, even our hormone levels. Commander Brooks turned, stunned. How is that even possible? It shouldn't be, Lisa replied. Getting this much detail would take medical-grade sensors, and they're doing it from a light hour away. No detectable scan beams, nothing. The message finally ceased. But not before the voice added one final, chilling line. We have complete biological and psychological profiles of all organic life within this region. Inspection will begin at our discretion. Do not attempt to leave this system. In the Endeavor's engine bay, Chief Engineer Sam Davis was poring over the impossible. These readings don't add up, he muttered. Pete, take a look. His assistant studied the console. They scanned everything and, yet we never saw any energy burst. Not even a whisper. Sam shook his head slowly. Unless they're scanning from outside our dimensional layer. Technology that doesn't even exist in our framework. No emission, no trace. Back in the Dominion Council chamber, Hive Speaker Zenith was growing increasingly frantic. His 6 limbs twitched as he accessed his people's ancient memory songs. The songs are clearing, he buzzed. 200 cycles ago, humans crossed the stars to seek something called the enhancement. My ancestors warned that such a quest would end with humanity becoming unrecognizable. Crystal mind, Traval's glowing form turned a deep violet alarm. What kind of transformation? She asked. The humans who returned, Zenith said gravely, were no longer bound by natural law. They reshaped matter and space itself. But the price was their identity. They lost what made them human. Gas form. Vinix pulsed wildly within his containment shell. You're saying those vessels are manned by humans who gave up being human? I'm saying they found something in the Dark Hand. It changed them forever. Captain Morrison struggled to reconnect with Earth Command. The signals were distorted, but finally, Admiral Helen Price's face appeared. Her voice trembled. Jake, I dug deeper into the Infinity mission records. What I found is alarming. The expedition wasn't just after old relics. They were specifically looking for devices referred to as evolutionary enhancement artifacts. What kind of devices? Jake asked. Artifacts left behind by a species that supposedly ascended beyond physical form millions of years ago. The tech allegedly allows life to exist in multiple dimensional layers. Jake's blood ran cold. Are you saying the Infinity Expedition found them? I'm saying that if they did, then what came back isn't human anymore. In any way that counts. At that moment, Dr. Carter's voice echoed through the ship. All senior staff. Report to Science Lab 1. I've discovered something you need to see. Once assembled, Lisa displayed quantum data that defied everything they knew. These ships aren't just advanced, she said. They're not fully in our universe. They exist across at least 6 overlapping dimensional fields. What we're seeing is just a sliver of their true form. Jake leaned forward. What does that mean for us? It means we're fighting shadows. The real vessels and their capabilities are hidden outside our reach. They may be carrying weapons and defenses we literally can't perceive. Commander Brooks frowned at the data. You're saying they could destroy us without us ever knowing how. I'm saying if they chose to strike, we might already be dead and not realize it yet. Back aboard the Eternal Glory, Admiral Vexer received another update, one far more dire. Admiral, his comms officer reported, monitoring stations are detecting identical fleets emerging near other Dominion strongholds. Dozens of them. Vexer's throat tightened. How many fleets? At least 20, sir. Maybe more. It looks like they're surrounding the entire Dominion. Panic rippled through the council chamber. The Krytuk delegates called for full-scale evacuation. The Valinari tried to calculate survival odds. The Morgan ex-representatives pushed for immediate surrender. We can't fight what we can't touch, Traval said flatly. Our weapons are useless against entities that exist across multiple realities. Jake stood in silence as the room erupted into fear and debate. He glanced back at the projection of the alien-human hybrid fleet, motionless, impenetrable, unknowably, and asked the one question no one could answer. What do they want with us? Before anyone could respond, Admiral Vexer's long-range sensors detected a new development. One ship had broken formation from the mysterious fleet and was approaching slowly, bearing what appeared to be a flag of parley. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the inbound vessel, the communications officer reported. Put it through, Vexer ordered. The voice that filled the speakers was different from the earlier broadcast. It was clearly human but layered, resonating in a way that made everyone feel like they were hearing it not just in their ears, but in their minds, as though it existed across multiple planes of perception. Admiral Vexer, Captain Morrison, representatives of the Dominion Council, the voice said. I am Commodore Kate Reynolds, of the Vanguard Fleet. I request permission to come aboard your flagship to speak face to face. There is much to discuss, and little time to do so. Jake turned to Admiral Vexer. Do we let them aboard? We have a choice, Vexer replied. If they meant to destroy us, we'd already be ash. Maybe it's time we hear what they have to say. As the strange vessel drew closer, every eye in both fleets locked onto it equal parts, fear and fascination. Whatever this meeting turned into, it would reshape everything they believed about humanity, technology, and the fabric of reality itself. The approaching ship looked human sleek lines, familiar contours, but there was something deeply unnatural about it. It flickered in and out of visibility, phasing through layers of space in a way that made the eye ache and the mind recoil. Sensors confirmed it existed across several dimensional fields simultaneously. On the bridge of the Eternal Glory, the communications officer turned again. "Admiral, the vessel is requesting docking clearance." Vexor looked at Captain Morrison. "Your thoughts?" Jake studied his portable scanner. "Admiral, if they wanted to hurt us, they've had plenty of chances. I think we need answers." "Then grant docking access Base 7, Vexor ordered. What happened next defied all established understanding of spacefaring procedure. Instead of aligning for a standard docking maneuver, the alien-human vessel simply drifted through the Eternal Glory's energy shielding as though it wasn't even there. No impact, no disruption, just silent, impossible passage. In engineering. Chief Davis was watching the process unfold. "This is insane," he muttered. "Nothing should pass through our shields without a catastrophic energy discharge." "Chief, look at this," Pete Wilson said, pointing to the data. "The ship isn't just slipping through, it's reshaping our hull. It's making its own docking bay." Indeed, the crew in Docking Bay 7 stood frozen as the metal of the Eternal Glory began to shift, melting and reforming into a seamless airlock. The process was like watching solid steel flow like water, then harden again into perfect form. "Security." Chief Corden tapped his comm. "Admiral, the visitors are docking, but they're using tech we don't even have words for." Then the airlock opened, and 3 figures stepped out. At first glance, they looked human: 2 arms, 2 legs, faces clearly shaped by Earth's evolutionary path. But something about them was wrong. Jake, Vexor, and the Dominion representatives stood waiting. As the trio walked forward, Jake noticed their steps were eerily perfect. No natural sway, no micro-adjustments. Their bodies moved too precisely. Their eyes reflected light, like mirrors. The very air shimmered faintly around them when they breathed. The lead figure was a woman peering about 40, with brown hair and calm, unreadable features. Her voice, when she spoke, vibrated with harmonic frequencies that seemed to echo inside the bones of every listener. "I am Commodore Kate Reynolds of the Vanguard Fleet," she said. "Thank you for granting us access. The time for hiding has ended. We have much to explain." Admiral Vexor stepped forward. "Commodore Reynolds, your fleet has caused alarm across the Dominion. We need to understand who you are and what you want." Reynolds gave a slight smile, though it didn't reach her reflective eyes. "We are the descendants of the UN's Infinity Expedition launched by Earth 200 years ago. What we discovered beyond the edge of the galaxy changed us permanently." Dr. Carter, standing nearby with her scanner, was already collecting data. The readings stunned her. "Captain," she whispered to Morrison, "they're not fully here. Their bodies only partly exist in our physical space. The rest of them is anchored in other dimensions." Commodore Reynolds turned her head slightly. She had heard the whisper from over 20 feet away. "Dr. Carter is correct," she said without turning. "To survive what we encountered, we had to evolve. Our consciousness and biology were altered, so we could live across multiple layers of existence." "What exactly did you find?" Jake asked. Reynolds raised her hand. At once, holographic images filled the air around them, towering alien constructs, adrift in the black between galaxies. The structures defied all logic, shifting in size and shape as they watched. Made of materials that looked half metal, half energy, we discovered remnants of a civilization that had long transcended physical form, she said. They left behind machine stools that allowed us to interface with the quantum fabric of reality. Our minds became entangled with the very forces that shaped time and space. Hive speaker. X-Smith studied the images with wide, unblinking eyes. The memory songs spoke true, he buzzed. You found the enhancement, but at what cost? Reynolds nodded solemnly. The price was our humanity as you understand it. We no longer perceive existence as you do. To us, time, space, even identity are tools we can shape. Rather than limits, we must obey. Crystal mind Travol's crystalline form flared bright red. You're saying, you can manipulate the forces of the universe itself? To a certain extent, Reynolds replied with calm finality. Yes, but that's not why we returned, Reynolds said. We didn't come back to display our abilities. We came because the galaxy is in danger. Admiral Vexer leaned forward, voice tense. What kind of danger? Reynolds waved her hand, and the projected images shifted. Now, space was torn open in massive, jagged rifts. Beyond them, shadowy figures moved strange and wrong, impossible to focus on, as if they existed in too many dimensions to comprehend. The expansion of galactic civilization has drawn attention, she explained, from beings that live in the void between dimensions. They don't simply destroy, they feed on reality itself. They unravel the quantum structures that hold existence together. Dr. Carter stared at the projections, her voice barely a whisper. You mean there are entities out there that can consume entire galaxies? Not just galaxies, Reynolds replied grimly. These things can erase entire realities, not death, erasure. Anything caught in their path is wiped so thoroughly that it never existed to begin with. Gasform Vinix churned violently within his containment field. How do you even know about creatures like this? Because we've been fighting them, Reynolds said, for 50 years now. Ever since we found what lay beyond the edge of the galaxy. The enhanced humans, the ones who survived the transformation, have held them back, but they're getting stronger, and soon, the veil between dimensions will shatter. Commander Ryan Brooks, who had been silent until now, stepped forward, and, why should we believe you? He asked. How do we know you're not the threat? Reynolds turned to him, her mirrored eyes locking onto his. Because, Commander Brooks, if we were the threat, you'd already be gone. She lifted her hand. Again, in an instant, the entire room vanished. The assembled crew and council members found themselves standing on what seemed like a transparent platform suspended in deep space. Beneath them, both the Dominion and Vanguard fleets hung in stillness, but around them, space was wounded gaping. Tears revealed glimpses of a reality where nothing followed the known laws of physics. Through the rifts, immense, twisting shapes moved beings, so alien their very presence made the mind rebel. They didn't move in space, they unfolded across dimensions, shifting in and out of visibility like something half-dreamed. This is happening now, Reynolds said, her voice calm amid the storm of madness around them. At the edge of your galaxy, the dimensional walls are crumbling, and when they fall, these entities will pour into your reality. Jake Morrison could hardly breathe. He clutched the edge of the platform as he stared into the rifts. How do we fight something like this? You can't, Reynolds said, her voice flat. Your technology operates in 3 dimensions. These beings exist in 12. Your weapons won't touch them. Then how are you stopping them? Jake asked. We can fight them, she answered, because we no longer exist in just 3 dimensions. We've adapted. We've become something else. She turned to the gathered leaders, her gaze hardening. But here's the truth. Not all of us agree you're worth saving. Admiral Vexer's tone sharpened. What do you mean? Reynolds didn't flinch. The enhanced those of us who've evolved have argued endlessly over whether baseline humanity and the rest of your civilizations possess the potential to survive what's coming. Some believe you're too primitive, too bound to linear thought, rigid laws, and limited perception. They think it's better to let the void consume this galaxy. and build anew from the ashes, with something more evolved. Without warning, the platform beneath them dissolved, and everyone was suddenly back in the conference room aboard the Eternal Glory. The return to normal space was jarring. Several people stumbled as reality reasserted itself. "You don't agree with those who want to let us be destroyed?" Jake asked. "I don't," Reynolds replied, "nor do many others like me. We believe every form of consciousness has value. We think baseline humanity and your fellow civilizations can evolve, given time, guidance, and purpose. That's why we've come back." Dr. Carter studied the readings on her handheld scanner, reviewing the data from their brief time outside of conventional space. Her instruments had recorded energy signatures she couldn't begin to explain, patterns unknown to any scientific model. "Commodore Reynolds," she said cautiously, "what you've shown us is beyond extraordinary. But how can we be sure it's real? How do we know this isn't an illusion created by some advanced technology?" Reynolds gave a small smile this time. Her expression was almost warm, almost human. "Doctor," she said, "in precisely 30 seconds, your long-range sensors will detect a series of massive gravitational distortions at these coordinates." She recited a string of numbers. "What you'll see is one of the entities attempting to breach into your space." Vexer immediately relayed the coordinates to his sensor team. 30 seconds later, alarms blared across the ship. "Admiral," came the urgent voice of the sensor operator. "We've got extreme gravitational spikes at the exact location specified. Something is trying to tear open space itself." Everyone in the room turned to Commodore Reynolds, and this time, no one doubted her anymore. Whatever she and the enhanced humans were, they weren't lying, and if they were telling the truth about the threat, then they might also be the Galaxies' only chance of survival. The klaxons wailed across the Eternal Glory as more reports came in. "Sir," the sensor officer said, his voice trembling, "the gravitational instability is intensifying. Whatever's behind it is getting closer fast." Reynolds stepped forward to address the room. "What you're detecting is only the beginning," she said. "These entities have been probing the dimensional walls for months. Sooner or later, they'll find the right pressure point. When that happens, the breach will be permanent and catastrophic." Captain Morrison stared down at his own scanner, watching energy levels rise by the second. "How much time do we have?" "Hours, if we're lucky," Reynolds said. "Maybe less. That's why a choice must be made now. Will you accept our protection, or try to face this alone?" Admiral Vexer glanced around the room. His officers and the alien delegates all looked stunned, some afraid, others struggling to mask it. "And what exactly are you offering?" he asked. "A full technological alliance," Reynolds replied. "We'll share our advancements, but only under our guidance. We'll also assume responsibility for shielding this galaxy from the dimensional threat." Crystalmine Travell flickered through several colors before asking, "And what do you ask in return?" "Recognition," Reynolds said, "that enhanced humanity now serves as the senior partner in this galaxy. Your civilizations will retain independence in most affairs, but any research into unstable technologies or exploration beyond known space will require our oversight." Vinix spun faster in his containment suit, his voice sharp. "You're asking us to become your subordinates." "I'm asking you to recognize the reality you're living in," Reynolds answered calmly. "This universe is far more perilous than you've ever imagined. Right now, your civilizations are children playing with fire." Hive Speaker Zemoth's 6 arms moved in intricate patterns as he consulted the ancestral memories encoded in his DNA. "The memory songs warned of this moment," he said. "Accept protection and risk losing sovereignty, or refuse and face annihilation." Meanwhile, aboard the UN's Endeavor, Dr. Lisa Carter was still in her lab, analyzing the gravitational data from the breach attempt. What she saw made her heart skip a beat. She opened a channel to the bridge immediately. "Jake, you need to see this," she said. The gravitational patterns, they're not chaotic. They're following a deliberate structure. What kind of structure? Jake asked. It's like watching someone pick a lock, Lisa replied. Whatever's out there, it's learning how our universe functions, and it's probing for the exact points of failure. In engineering, Chief Sam Davis stood in front of a console covered in incomprehensible spikes of energy across every frequency. Pete, get over here, he called. The enhanced ship's there doing something. Pete Wilson checked his panel. Chief, the entire fleet is transforming. On the main screen, both the Dominion and Endeavour bridges watched as all 200 enhanced ships began to change. They split apart, rearranged, and reformed into new configurations that no known laws of physics could explain. They're getting ready, Commander Brooks said, realization dawning. They're preparing for battle. His question, but against what, was answered moments later. The first dimensional tier ruptured fully open. Something emerged. What came through the breach was beyond terrifying. It wasn't just massive or alien, it was incomprehensible. A swirling, shifting void of darkness that devoured all light around it. Its form was impossible to describe because it wasn't bound by three-dimensional constraints. It flickered through higher dimensional states that made the eyes water and the mind scream as it moved. Stars dimmed in nearby, planets disappeared entirely. Jake could only whisper, "My God, how do you fight that?" The enhanced fleet responded. It moved as one, shifting, shimmering, and launching toward the entity that had come to erase existence. The battle that followed was unlike anything the Galaxy had ever witnessed. The enhanced ships, now transformed, unleashed weapons that existed across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Energy beams curved through space in ways that defied logic, striking targets invisible to any conventional sensors. The entity retaliated with attacks that didn't just destroy matter, they erased it. Wherever its weapons struck, space didn't become a vacuum. It became absence itself. Areas of reality simply ceased to be. Dr. Carter watched in stunned silence, her instruments struggling to capture what was happening. "Jake," she said, her voice tight, "they're not just fighting. Here. They're operating on at least 8 different dimensional planes. Are they winning?" Jake asked. Lisa hesitated. "I don't know. The battle's too complex. Most of it's unfolding in layers of existence we can barely even detect." In the Eternal Glories conference room, Commodore Reynolds stood still, calm amidst the chaos outside. "You see now what we've been facing," she said. "This is just one entity. There are thousands more in the dimensional void." Admiral Vexer stared at the surreal conflict on the view screen. The enhanced ships moved in patterns that defied physics, attacking an enemy that by all laws of science shouldn't exist. "If we agree to your terms," he asked, "how do we know you won't take control of everything?" Reynolds shook her head. "Because we don't want to rule you. Overseeing three-dimensional species would be like adults taking over a playground. It would be dull, meaningless. What we want are partners who can grow into something more, not subjects." Outside, the battle reached its crescendo. The enhanced fleet had successfully encircled the entity, attacking it from countless angles, across multiple dimensions. Inch by inch, they pushed it back toward the rift. Reynolds turned to Jake. "Captain Morrison, as the voice of baseline humanity, the decision is yours. What will it be?" Jake glanced around the room. Every eye, human, alien, and enhanced, was on him. The weight of his choice pressed down like a collapsing star. "If I say yes," Jake asked, "what happens to Earth? What happens to our freedom?" "Earth will remain self-governing in domestic matters," Reynolds replied. "But when it comes to space exploration, weapons development, or first contact with unknown species, you'll coordinate with us. And if I say no," Reynolds gestured toward the battle, "then you face that alone. And let me be clear, Captain, your current arsenal is completely ineffective. You wouldn't even scratch one of these entities. Jake thought of his crew, of Earth, of the distant colonies scattered across known space, and of the thing outside that was trying to undo existence itself. At last, he nodded. I accept your terms. Humanity agrees to the partnership. One by one, the other alien leaders followed. The critic, guided by ancient memory, were the first. The visionary, always cautious, took a moment longer. Even the proud Morin eventually yielded. Survival, they realized, was worth more than pride. Admiral Vexer spoke last. The Galactic Dominion accepts the protection and guidance of the human evolutionary collective. The moment those words were spoken, everything changed. Outside, the enhanced fleet began moving with a terrifying new precision as though they had been holding back, waiting. In seconds, their coordination surged. The dimensional entity was overwhelmed. They drove it back through the tier in space and sealed the breach behind it. Commander Brooks stared in disbelief. Why didn't you fight like that from the start? Reynolds gave him a faint, tired smile, this time unmistakably human. Because you needed to see what you were up against. You needed to understand this wasn't a question of freedom versus submission. It was survival or extinction. Dr. Carter scanned her instruments as the enhanced fleet reassembled into its original formation. Commodore Reynolds, what happens now? Now? Reynolds said. Now the real work begins. We'll start upgrading your systems, teaching you how to detect incursions across dimensions. But more importantly, we'll begin preparing your civilizations for the greater universe. Jake blinked. Greater universe? This galaxy, Reynolds said, is just one quiet corner in a cosmos filled with wonders and terrors beyond imagination. The entity you just saw, that was a minor threat. There are far worse things waiting in the dark. Admiral Vexer turned to the stars. They suddenly felt much colder, much farther away. You mean there are threats? More dangerous than that? Yes, Reynolds said. There are powers that dwarf even these entities, incomprehensible forces that treat galaxies the way you treat grains of sand. But with our help, your people might one day stand among them. The choice is yours. As the enhanced fleet dispersed across the stars, heading to defend other vulnerable systems. Everyone in the conference room knew the truth. Their galaxy had just stepped into a wider, more perilous cosmos. And the Dominion's greatest fear hadn't been that the fleet was human. Their greatest fear had been correct. These beings represented what humanity could become when it stopped limiting itself. That transformation was both mankind's most incredible triumph and its most terrifying warning.